Hello and welcome to Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. We're talking faith, we're talking finance, we're talking business. We're just talking about living successfully under the guidance and care of our God. And I know God loves me because guess who is my special co-host again today? The one, the only, Pam Perry. Oh, Pam, thanks for joining us again as a co-host.
Oh, thank you, Alfred. Thank you. I'm blessed as well. I am blessed as well. Thank you for having this platform for me to share with you.
So we got 2024 drawing to a close. What's going on with you? Where's your head at? Where's your heart at right now?
I'm thinking in 1 month, I told you, sis, I can't believe it. It will be Christmas, which is such a magical time of year, but it's also the last, I would say, dash, so to speak, to get everything that you said that you were going to do in 2024, to be in position to really finish those things up, to type all the loose ends. So that's what I'm doing right now. I've been working on a particular project and I am determined to get it done. It's a PR planner and it helps me, and I want to really produce that planner for other people. I love journals and writing and planners and things like that. So that's what I'm working on. So it's like the last 4 weeks of the year to really get everything done that you said you were going to do.
Well, you know, I've been looking at 2024 as the year of transition and 2025 as the year of breakthrough.
Yeah.
But we're talking about endings and beginnings. Today's topic and today's guest is going to be perfect. We're talking about how does God make beauty out of ashes? That thought, that what do we come out of it and come out with some beautiful things. So today's guest is going to be great to have this conversation. Listen, everybody, you're listening to Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. Sit tight, stay tuned with me and Pam Perry. We'll be right back. Welcome to Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr., and my special guest co-host today is one of my favorite people, Pam Perry. Pam, thanks for being here.
Hey, glad to be here.
So we talked about how does God make beauty out of ashes, and you're talking about trying to make the most of as the year closes and we go through the holiday season and you got projects going on. And I'm thinking about, okay, what am I going to do to be open to what God is going to do for us in 2025? And so this question of how does God make beauty out of ashes, our guest today, who is somebody I've just gotten really to know this past year. She was a speaker at the Black Enterprise Women of Power Summit. That's the first time we met in person, but I was a fan of hers via social media because she just don't know how to act on Instagram. You would think she was just a woman of God and an executive and an author and speaker. And she needs Jesus. That's all I'm saying. So listen, we are welcoming to the show one of my favorite people. I got two favorite people now. Nona Jones. She's the author of a great new book called The Gift of Rejection, the latest of several great books. But she's just a joy professionally. She's a joy to have as a friend. She's just a wonderful person. But she also has a powerful, powerful story and journey that is just blessing people all over the place. Nona, welcome to the show.
It is so good to be here. I quite literally had to stifle my laugh as you were talking about me. I'm so excited to be here with you and Pam. So thanks for having me.
So listen,
It's great.
What are you up to? I happen to know because I read it. Your book, The Gift of Rejection. That was also the topic of your address when you spoke for the Women of Power Summit earlier this year. But before we get into the specifics and the details, what's going on with you? How are you? How's this season for you as we're ending a year?
First of all, I'm wonderful. I'm doing great. The last several months have been quite intense with the book release. But I will tell you, I'm so encouraged. I've had thousands of people tell me that this message has been a blessing to them. And kind of concurrently, as I've been releasing this message, I've also been building an organization to serve high capacity professional women, not only to help them live out on purpose and, grow their leadership, but to help them heal. I think a lot of
Mm.
times we're pursuing success as a proxy for wholeness. And I've been there, and so I really want to help successful women heal, and really get to a place of fulfillment, in their careers and lives. So all is well with me right now.
Well,
Good. So, Nona, when you say help women heal, healing from trauma, healing from stress, healing from a boss they can't stand, what are they healing from? Because I hear that a lot, how people just need to heal. Is it traumatic things from childhood or just healing from a particular place where they are in their life right now?
Great question. It's all of the above. I think that we sometimes can compartmentalize our pain, and we can think, for example, that the way that we're showing up in our career right now is because we have, a bad manager, or we've had some bad experiences in the workplace. But the reality is, the way that we show up today is always a reflection of the journey that we've been on through our lives. And so,
Mm.
what we're doing, and my company's called Inside Out Leadership, what we're trying to do is we're trying to help women really map out, their identity. There are different places in our lives where we experience trauma. Some of it is in the present, but a lot of it's in the past. And a lot of it is unacknowledged. Even
Mm.
one of the reasons why I wrote The Gift of Rejection is some of us are carrying wounds from things that we don't have language for. We gave our best years to a man who left us for another woman. And we don't realize that that is a form of rejection, and that's a
Mm.
wound. Some of us had mothers who didn't really nurture us and show up for us as children. And society tells us, don't say anything about your mom. And so we're carrying this mother wound, and we can't even talk about it, but that's a rejection wound. And then, of course, we do have experiences in our career where we were overlooked for the thing that we had our hearts set on. And, we're told to just, suck it up, and maybe it just wasn't your time. But that's a rejection wound, and it can change the way that you show up in life. And so, yeah, we're trying to help women really map that out. Where were the places along your life journey where you were abandoned, where you were humiliated, where you were blamed, you were shamed? And how does that show up in the way that you lead? How does that even show up in the goals that you set for yourself? Because I said it earlier, sometimes we use success as a proxy for worth. And we think, if I
Mhm.
just get the award, if I just get invited to the club, if I just get the promotion, then I will be fulfilled. But on the other side of those things, you're still empty. You're still stressed. You're still anxious. And so we're trying to help women really heal the hurts that more success won't help.
Well, I could say, because I witnessed it with my own eyes, you're doing more than trying. The biggest compliment I can give to anybody's book that I've read is not only that I like it, but I bought copies for other people, and I can say
Mm,
that about the gift of rejection.
thank
You
you.
are really, you've blessed us because of what you're teaching others is what you've done and what you do. You unpacked your own trauma. At the Women of Power Summit, I mean, you have these top level executives, C-suite executives with tears in their eyes saying, "I never talked about it." And it's very easy for people to, especially looking at you have a 20-year happy marriage, two beautiful children, successful career executive in corporate America, successful faith leader, successful author, and people look at you in the current version, and if you don't have the support and the courage to unpack your trauma, you can't bless other people. And I know that, I mean, I know you well enough to know it wasn't easy for you,
Yeah.
but the work, and you're literally doing God's work by showing other people, and I would say not just women, because you blessed me as a male, um, how to do that, how to acknowledge your trauma, find language for it, express it, and then use it, as you said, to leverage the gift that comes out of it.
Oh, thank you for that, Alfred. And I mean, so I've had a very unique experience in that, I spent 18 years in executive and senior executive roles in corporate America, while at the exact same time, being in ministry. And, very, very few women at those high levels of leadership are also preaching and teaching and doing all of that, because in some ways, you kind of usually have to pick one. You pick one identity. But I was very blessed to walk in both lanes. And what I will say is, what's interesting is there really is no real safe place for vulnerability. There really isn't. Like, you certainly in the workplace can't be like, hey, let me tell you what I'm struggling with. And then a lot of times in the church where you should feel safe to be vulnerable, you're told be strong, God got you and all these things. Like, you're supposed to just somehow stop being human just because you're in the church. And so that's why I think part of my purpose, part of my calling is to create that safe place for people to be able to be human and be able to be ministered to. So it's like, yes, I can equip you on how to, to grow and scale organizations and broker private partnerships, and I can do all that. But what I also want to do is I want to make sure that while you're doing those things, that you're healthy, that you're experiencing joy, that you have peace, that your family is okay. I talk to so many women, and I've been there where, yeah, you getting all these awards, but your family is in shambles and you're
Mm.
heading home and you can't even sleep at night because there's so much going on. So I have a heart just for the whole woman, and especially women who are successful, women who are professional, because I've been there. Like, that's my life.
I love the name of your book, The Gift of Rejection, right? No one likes to be rejection. That's like the main thing that people always try to avoid. But I remember one time people saying that rejection is God's protection. And
Mhm.
let's kind of talk about what that really means. Like, sometimes being rejected is really way of God just trying to protect you from something, but we're just sometimes so adamant about really making things happen or making people like you or making something that, God is like, I'm trying to close this door and you still trying to bust it down.
Okay, Nona, Pam, Nona, don't do it because there's a story I want you to tell from the book. I'm gonna try to give you a hint about which one, about the high school sweetheart story.
Oh yeah.
That's a perfect illustration of what Pam just said, but in a way that manifested itself so much later in life. But anyway, listen, guys, Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living abundant life. You do not want to touch that dial, push that button, whatever it is you do when you're listening to stuff like this. We will be right back with Nona Jones and my special guest host, Pam Perry. Welcome back to Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. I'm here with my special guest host, one of my favorite people, Pam Perry, and we're here with one of my other favorite people, my new favorite person, Nona Jones. And Nona, Pam asked a great question about the idea that we see on social media. We hear this idea a lot of rejection actually being God protecting us from stuff. But often we hear that, but we don't really believe. Maybe we do, but we struggle with that idea. We're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd rather not be rejected. But there's a great experience you share in your book about an unbelievable story, guys. So I'm just gonna get out of the way and let her tell it.
Yeah, well, let me first acknowledge, because when I titled the book "The Gift of Rejection," I, even to myself, that was a super paradoxical title, because it's like, how can you say rejection is a gift when gifts are good, gifts are fun? Rejection is none of that. It is painful. But I think the revelation that God gave me, even through the story I'm about to tell, is that pain is rejection's wrapping paper. There's
Mm.
always a gift on the inside. And so we have to be willing to open the gift and explore it. And so, where this revelation came from, when I was in high school, I fell in love with a guy. And, before him, I never had a boyfriend. I was always the girl who I was popular, people liked me, but I was overweight, I was chunky. And so I was never the girl that guys wanted. But I ended up losing weight and got into a relationship with this guy. He was super smart. He was actually planning to become like an elected official. And I just was in love with this guy. So, anyway, one summer he went down south. We both lived in Florida. He went down south to do an internship with a state senator. And when he was coming back for a weekend, he reached out to me and said, hey, I want to take you out to the movies. And I was so excited. So I got my hair done, my nails done, got a little new outfit, the whole thing. And about an hour before we were supposed to go, he was supposed to pick me up. He told me that a family emergency came up and he couldn't do it. And so, of course, I was bummed, but it was a family emergency. So, what are you going to do? So, I called some of my friends and I just said, hey, y'all want to go to the movies? I was supposed to go with my then boyfriend, but, it didn't work out. So, they were like, sure. So, anyway, we all meet up at this movie theater and we're standing in line to buy our tickets. I happened to look over, just randomly looked over, and I saw my boyfriend standing in line holding hands with another girl. And the moment I looked over there, he happened to look back at me and the color drained from his face. And I remember just being so hurt and shocked and angry. And my friends who were with me at the same time, they saw him and they were like, "Oh my gosh, Nona, he's such a jerk. You know, don't let this hurt you. He is so horrible. I'm sorry this happened to you." And I was so hurt about that thing. And I remember seeing the girl. She didn't look at me, but I saw her. And he tried to the next day. He tried to reach out to me, and he was trying to apologize. Left all these voice messages. I never called him back. Like I just left it completely alone. So put a pin in that. Fast forward about, I don't know, 15 years. I was working at Facebook, and that whole time, I remember just being so hurt by him cheating on me. I ended up, I got married. I was already settled into my like family life. Well, I'm working at Facebook, and a pastor friend reaches out to me, and he asked if I could give him a call because he had had an emergency. And I said, sure. So I call him, and he asks me if I can help him take down the Facebook page of one of his spiritual sons. And I was like, I've never had anybody ask me to do that. Like, people have asked me to help them get their page back up, but I've never had anyone actually ask me to take a page down. And so I was like, look, I don't know if I can do that, but send me the link and I'll escalate it and see what happens. And he was like, thank you so much. He said people are just putting really mean things on his page. And then he said, I don't want him to be remembered for the worst thing he ever did. And so, he sends me the link. I click on the link in the text, and immediately I see the profile picture of my ex-boyfriend from high school staring back at me.
Hmm.
And I scroll down the page and I see all these comments from people saying, serves him right, cheaters get what they deserve. Another comment was like, how could he call himself a pastor out here living a double life? Then I saw somebody else who was like, I hope his wife is okay. And so I'm seeing all this. So I'm like, whoa. So I go to Google and I Google his name because I'm like, what happened? Come to find out, he was murdered by his mistress,
Hmm.
who also tried to kill his wife.
Hmm.
And of course, in that moment, I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope his wife is okay. And I'm also thinking, oh my God, that could have been me. Like what I realize is all these years, I had thought that he cheated on me with that girl at the movie theater, but I then realized he could have been cheating on her with me. Like it's like the story suddenly kind of changes entirely. And I'm confronted with the reality that that could have been me. That could have been me. And all these years I had been carrying the pain from him, cheating on me and abandoning me and all of this. And it's like, actually, God had been protecting me the entire time and I did not know it. And so this is why one of the things that I talk about in the book, The Gift of Rejection, is that once you receive the new paradigm, once you understand that, yes, the pain is wrapping paper, but there's a gift on the inside. When rejection happens in the future, even though you don't know the why, you don't know the ins and outs, you at least know that there is a gift in this. I don't know what it is. It is painful. I probably would not have chosen this if I had a choice, but I'm going to trust God and know that this is going to ultimately serve my purpose. And so that is actually the scenario that led me to see rejection as a gift. And that is the story that actually underwrote the entire book, The Gift of Rejection.
I love that. Oh my God, I had no idea that was really like the main, because I love the title, The Gift of Rejection. I just
Mhm.
immediately thought about rejection as God's protection, but God
Mhm.
really did protect you from
And I
that
just want to
particular
say
thing.
that's just a taste. You want to, audience, listeners, all y'all out there, you want to get this woman's book. It
What
is
it's
a
it,
great book because you're talking about, and Nona, you and I have talked before. So you're talking about the courage to face your pain,
Mhm.
the courage to unwrap the wrapping paper, as opposed to
Mhm.
carrying the gift around without knowing what's inside, and therefore you only recognize it as pain. That's not the only trauma that you unpack for the benefit of the reader, so we can unpack ours. But
Mm.
and you're being very honest. Like, I'm not saying it was good. I'm not saying this wasn't
Mm-mm.
painful. I'm not trying to. You don't try to sugarcoat it. I don't know. So Pam,
And one of the things too is that when you have a book and you think that people should support you, people should buy it, people should be excited about it, and the main people that you think that should be excited about it and buy it are the main ones that don't come and give you the party. It's always, like you said, there have been thousands of other people, but maybe these weren't even the people you knew, the people that you knew that were going to be the ones that will be the rah-rah for you, and they're not. That is also painful as well
Mhm.
for
It
any.
is. And I think what makes rejection so painful is in order to experience rejection, you had to first have the hope that you were accepted. Because you
That
don't
hope.
you don't feel rejected by a job that you didn't apply for, that didn't choose you. You don't feel rejected because a stranger didn't show up for you in your time of need. No, you feel rejected because you applied and they chose somebody else.
Mm.
Because you said, "Hey, I need help, friend," and they didn't show up. And so, yeah, when rejection happens, it doesn't just injure our pride. It actually breaks our heart because it shatters the hope that we were accepted.
That's true. And I like the fact that you said that when you do face the rejection, that you trust the bigger picture. You trust that God has got something better for you. You trust that word trust is a big word.
Mhm.
So I think people sometimes when you said that they don't like to really air their laundry or pull back the rug or open up, but the book allows people to really say, hey, if she can talk about it, then I can too. So
Absolutely.
talk about some of those things of surprising of like how women are just opening up about things that they probably only told their journal or their therapist.
yeah. Let's jump into that on the other side of the break. We're talking to the one and only Nona Jones, the author of The Gift of Rejection. We're here with my good friend Pam Perry, who knows a thing or two about books and how important they are and how to get the word out. Pam, you hit the nail on the head. This idea of trust and who you expect things from, Nona, as you said. It's easy to be betrayed by your enemy
Mm,
because they're your enemy. You don't expect them. It's easy to trust when you have guarantees, but if there's a guarantee, there's no trust at all. Yeah, I just want to dive into all of that when we come back. This is Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. We're here with Nona Jones and Pam Perry. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Be Lifted Up Radio. I'm your co-host Pam Perry here with Alfred Edmond and Nona Jones, and we're talking about the gift of rejection. Not always pretty. We talked about it being wrapped in pain, but let's unwrap that package and really get into it, Nona, about what is on the inside of that.
Yeah, I think we have to realize that they say that hindsight is 2020. And so many of us can point to experiences that we had in the past where we were rejected and now we're grateful for it because we can look back and we can see how it worked for our good. But I think when we're in the thick of the thing, when you get the divorce papers that you weren't expecting, when you get the layoff announcement that catches you off guard, and you're now having to in the moment take account for the pain of the situation. I think part of the reason why I wrote this book is I really want people to have the hope of knowing that even this will work for your good. It doesn't feel good. It does not feel good, but it will work for your good. I gave the example. I was talking to a group of women and we were talking about relationships. And there was a few women in there who were just so upset because, their husbands left them. There was another woman who had given like 7 years of her life to a man who never proposed. And then he met a woman and like 3 months later proposed. And she was just so hurt by the whole thing. And I had to ask the question. I said, would you want to be with someone who it takes them 7 years to decide they don't want you? And she was like, I never thought about it that way. She said, I was just thinking about how many years I gave. And I said, right. I said, but the reality is in those 7 years, he was always looking for something else. And I asked her, I said, were there signs along the way that maybe he wasn't completely serious? And she said, yeah, it felt like around the holidays every year he would break up with me. I was
Hmm.
like, sweetheart, that is the surest sign that he's not that serious. But I say all of this because when you're facing that rejection, you can literally feel like it's the end of the world. It is not the end of the world. It's the beginning of a new chapter. And so we said in the last segment how rejection is God's protection. I would also say that rejection is redirection. And I'll
Mm.
give you just a really brief story. So I am a speaker now. I travel around the world and I get to speak on leadership and business and also, of course, in churches. But I was not intending to be a speaker. Like it was never something that I aspired to do, but I was working for a large global company and I wasn't hired as a spokesperson, but the communications team heard me speak during an internal employee meeting one day. And they came to me and they were like, hey, we would love for you to do this on behalf of the company at external events. Would you be willing? And I said, well, sure. So they start to send me out to all these different conferences and events, and I'm speaking to like, 2,000 or 3,000 people on behalf of the company. And I guess I did a great job because they sent me out more and more. Well, when performance review season came around, my manager gave me an exceeds expectations rating. She said I was doing a great job. But then she said, Nona, we're going to have to shut down all that speaking that you're doing. I need you to focus on your core work. And I feel like that's a distraction. And I was like, why? Like, I thought I was doing great. Well, she said, you're not doing a bad job. I just think that's a distraction. I went and talked to the communications director and she was like, Nona, your manager came to me and said that she wants to be the one speaking instead of you.
I
So
figured.
she basically shut that door, right? And I felt so rejected. I felt so hurt by that. But because I had been going out speaking at all these events, people at the events were emailing me, inviting me to speak at other things. And I always would say to them, I can't do it because I'm not allowed to speak on behalf of the company anymore. And they would say, we want you. Can you just speak as Nona Jones? And so I asked my communications team, I was like, can I? And they were like, if it's on the weekends or in the evenings on your own time, of course. Here's
Yeah.
the thing, when I was speaking for the company, I couldn't get paid.
Right.
But when I started to speak for myself, I was able to get paid because I was
There you
speaking
go.
for Nona Jones Incorporated. And so even that situation, closing that door, ended up redirecting me. It ended up opening a window that I would have never thought about had I continued to speak for the company. If she hadn't shut that down, I would still be speaking for the company today. I promise you. So
Wow.
I encourage people that when rejection happens, instead of taking it personally, consider, what am I being positioned for? What are the doors that are opening? What are the windows that are opening that I previously wasn't paying attention to because I was so focused on the opportunity in front of me? So rejection can become a tool for redirection of our purpose.
We
Hmm.
see
And
Pam
it's the
glowing as the
mindset.
publisher of Speakers Magazine, glowing at that story.
Oh my God, I love it. Yeah, she couldn't take a paycheck if she's worked for the company, but then now all of a sudden she can, and
Yep.
her speaking career has just blossomed.
Mhm.
That is really the whole thing about, I always say God doesn't really make mistakes, right? He never makes mistakes. And
Mm.
everything, depending on what it is, he uses all of our background, all of our
Yes.
skills, all of the even the people, what Alfred said earlier, people that betray you, people that you think
Mhm.
should support you. He uses all of that to just take you to the next level where you're supposed to go. You just have to look for, like you said, that window. Quit trying to go through the door. I'm opening the window. This is where you step through. It's about how you really trust in God,
Yeah, no, and
Yes.
I was
having your
talking to
faith.
Pam about me. I've been deep in the Old Testament, probably deeper than I've ever been this past year, and talked about how many evil kings that God used to advance the people. Like really bad, evil, you know, you know, kings and
Over and
rulers
over.
that still advance his agenda no matter what. So when you
Yep.
say somebody betrayed you, God's like, yeah, well, whatever, it's all good. But the other
Mhm.
thing I really want to get into, and one of the things that makes me really admire and respect you, um, because in this way we labor in the same vineyard. So do you, Pam, in a way. When you are providing service and support, ministry to very successful people, we're often serving the people who nobody thinks needs help.
Mhm.
Nobody thinks they ever needed trauma. and often think they don't have the right to ask for help
Yep.
because they are. Nona, you saw them at Women of Power. These women that are running, they're running multi-million, billion-dollar divisions. They're the go-to person in their family. They're the go-to person in their company. They're the go-to person in their network. So it's like, who wants to hear that I was abused as a child?
Yep.
Who's trying to hear all of that? Who cares that my husband is cheating on me? Who cares when I got this great life and and so talk to me a bit about I think something all three of us share what it means to minister to people who often don't look like they need help, can't admit they need help, and don't think they have the right to ask for it.
It's one of the most difficult positions to be in, is to be the one who is favored. Because when you are favored by God, people just assume that somehow you are no longer human and therefore you don't need anything. And I have been there. Like, I have been there to the point where your family comes to you for money, people are coming to you for advice, and you just have nowhere to go. And so I do think that it's important. And that's one of the things that I think is so wonderful about the Women of Power Summit, in particular, is it's like it's a community. When God created Eve, he said something really interesting in Genesis, because created all the heavens and the earth. Oh, this is so good. Created every living thing, every little creature. Oh, this is so good. And then he looks at man, he looks at Adam, and he said, it is not good that man is alone. So he creates someone because Adam needs to be in community. And so I do think it's important that we avail ourselves to community, but we have to do it smartly, because not everybody can handle our vulnerability. And I think we have to be prayerful about that.
Listen, we're here with Nona Jones and Pam. Pam, I want you to talk to Nona. Because when I have two powerful women together,
it's this a thing that a lot of women always talk about. We got to take off our capes, right? We got to take off our capes.
Yeah, that's what I want you to say.
We've got this Wonder Woman, the syndrome. Like, we can handle everything we got, and especially if you're a Black woman, you're a strong Black woman. It's like, okay, so you're a strong Black woman, you got it all together, but it's like, I need help, and that's where you will find where they'll go to the event where it's like you least likely to hear a speaker, and then all of a sudden the tears are going down your face. It's like, well, what the heck? And this was just a business meeting, but they see themselves in you. And that's what I think you're really trying to show in the book of The Gift of Rejection, is that, hey, you could look like you have it all together on the outside, but really on the inside, we want for you to be vulnerable. Not that they're not authentic, but they just want them to be vulnerable, to really talk about the pain, some of the trauma that they've gone through, or some of the betrayal, some of the rejections. And it's hard. It's really hard. And so when you have someone that looks like you to say, hey, I've been through it too, you really do feel like I can rest my cape and I can come in here and just sit down with you and talk. That's refreshing.
Listen, everybody, we'll be right back. We got Nona for a little bit more time. This is Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. Sit with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, welcome back to Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. And I'm your co-host, Pam Perry, here with Alfred Edmonds and Nona Jones, the author of The Gift of Rejection. So we're talking about, how does a person really deal with rejection, especially if they are seen as a high-level executive and they're supposed to be strong, but how do you really unwrap, or even who do you trust to really open up with your most intimate feelings and maybe pain or trauma or secrets? How do you do that, Nona?
Great question. I think that, and I'm so grateful that we are in a season now where I think therapy has become something that we can talk about. For so many years, you were looked at as weird, if you went to therapy, if you had a counselor, like, what's wrong with you? And I think the better question, it's not what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you, like what happened to you that has made you believe that you can't be vulnerable? What has happened to you that has made you believe that the only way to matter is to be the best and the first, and all of those types of accolades. And so I think as a woman in leadership, it becomes even more difficult because it can be incredibly isolating. So you for sure feel like you have to wear that cape because the fear is, look, I don't even know if I'm supposed to be here. And so if I take this cape off, they may find a reason to let me go. And so I think this is where being in community becomes important. I think this is where finding a therapist becomes important. And I think this is also where self-compassion becomes really, really important. As high achieving women, we of course expect a lot from our teams. And I think we also expect a lot from ourselves. And sometimes we expect more than what is humanly possible. We're emotional creatures. And yet, a lot of times in our career, we're expected to find a way to extract emotion from our experience. Like, I remember one time, one of my managers, he was talking about reorging my team. And what happened was he actually made a decision to reorg my team, which would have stripped away several of the employees that I needed. And he didn't even talk to me about it. He just told me what he was doing. And my reaction was like, wait a minute, I had plans for these people. I was very upset about it. And he even said to me, he said, well, you shouldn't be upset. It's just a business decision. And I remember saying to him, I said, business decisions have human implications. And so the idea that I should not have emotion because this is a business decision is just, it's irrational. And so being able to even have that conversation, it took a lot of courage for me, but I had gotten to a place where I was not afraid of the consequences because I needed him to understand I have boundaries too. And that's part of self-care.
That is good.
Yeah,
Well,
you talk about boundaries, you talk about the importance of self-care. One of the things I love about not just your book, but your work and your ministry is that it is not just a trauma party for the sake of having a trauma party. I mean, there are many, many books and reality shows and TV shows that's like, let's talk about how bad things can be and kind of have an orgy of emotion in that. Your book does go through some hard experiences of your life, but because it's very, again, it does focus on the gift. It's very solution oriented. It's very practical, which is obviously very important, especially when you're dealing with women in leadership. They're like, I don't need you just to be my girlfriend to tell me how bad it was. I'm coming to you because I want some practical navigation of how to move forward with my life in a way that's meaningful, and in all three of our cases, in a way that's pleasing to God, not just pleasing to the world. So to talk about the importance of, it comes naturally to you because of your dual, you're having a foot in both worlds. This idea that it's not just enough to say, yep, I'm gonna be vulnerable, but I'm not really going to get out of this vulnerability. I'm going to just kind of wallow in it, if you will, or let other people, immerse me in it.
Yeah, I think it's a question of, if you just stay in the place of your pain, there is a reward for that in some senses. Like sometimes when we stay in the place of our pain, we get pity. Right. And so that becomes the reward. And I know some people, I think we all do. Every time you see them, hey, how you doing? Oh man, my car just is getting repossessed. And, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make it. I'm gonna get evicted. And I just got this diagnosis from the doctor. There's never a good thing because they're so focused on what's going wrong. And so I think that mentality, unfortunately, it can be all consuming. It can literally be all consuming. And you can get to the place that because you're so fixated on what's wrong, you completely miss the beauty of your life. And I think that is where we have to build what I call resilience muscle, which is one of the reasons why I wrote The Gift of Rejection, is to help people have a different vantage point from which to see the most painful rejection experiences that you've had. Because once you see it differently, now you can take a different approach and actually apply it as a learning to your future instead of staying stuck in your past. But yeah, I mean, it's very possible that you could get rewarded by pity if you stay there. But the problem is when you stay there, you don't grow. You don't grow. And that's why you can have some people who, 70, 80 years old, and sometimes they have the mentality of a toddler because they've never actually used the resilience muscle to grow through the pain. They've just kind of stayed stuck in it. And so my hope for people is that you'll build resilience, because that resilience is what's going to help you experience fulfillment in your life.
Yeah, I've seen
it
that
is.
up close. I got a person in mind. Obviously, I won't name the person, who, when she passed at 78, she was still mourning a divorce that she went through when she was 31.
Whew.
I mean, if you were to talk to her and she didn't give you any dates, you would have thought she literally just got divorced last year. And then you talk deeper, and it's like, yeah, back in 1971, and you're like, it's sad, it's heartbreaking. But
Because
you're
your
right.
life almost stops there, right?
Yeah,
Like it stops at the place where you don't grow, you stop living. You can be breathing, but you're not living. And so that's necessary.
One of the things I read recently too was that 70% of women, especially, suffer from imposter syndrome. And I found that to be really kind of, as a publicist, I'm thinking that most people come to me, they want to get out there, they want to shine. But even the people that I work with, they still suffer from imposter syndrome. So talk a little bit about that. And you said that, people just kind of secretly feel like they're going to be found out. How does that make them feel on the inside? Because now they're always feeling like they're going to get fired or people are going to reject them.
Oh, yeah. Well, a revelation that God gave me some years ago is that, of course, imposter syndrome is this sense that I don't belong here. I'm not qualified to be here, right? The revelation God gave me is this: you're not an imposter when you're called. You're an imposter when you call yourself. What is
Mm,
the difference? Um, when you have been given an opportunity, no matter how qualified you may feel you are given that opportunity because you are qualified for the opportunity. When you force an opportunity, now you have called yourself to it. And so you very well may not be qualified for it. And that's part of the reason why, even in my career, look, I got my first executive role at the age of 23 at a Fortune 100 company. And I definitely struggled with imposter syndrome until someone actually told me, Nona, you're at this table because you deserve to be here. Like, there are no free lunches. Nobody just was like, oh, let's just give it to her. There are no free lunches. So I would encourage people to remember that you're not an imposter when you're called. You're an imposter when you call yourself. And so if you've been
that's
called
good.
and given the opportunity, just receive it with humility.
I love
Listen,
that.
we're running out of time, Nona, and I know again, you're the gift that keeps on giving. Your work, your spirit, your your sense of humor, all of that. Please let our audience know how they can, keep in touch with you, follow what you're doing, get her books. I'm gonna say get her books, but definitely get the gift of rejection.
Sure. So my website is nonajones.com, and my social handle is at Nona Not Nora. That's Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And you can pick up The Gift of Rejection wherever books are sold online. And I would love for you to read it.
I'm telling you, as someone who's read it, you won't regret it, and you're gonna end up buying more copies. But listen, we are out of time. Nona, thank you so much for joining me and Pam as our guest on Be Lifted Up Radio. Be blessed. I hope our paths cross soon.
Amen.
Thank
Thank you
you.
both.
We just had another great guest, another great conversation, and another great episode of Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. Pam, Nona Jones, I told you she's an amazing, amazing person.
Yes.
A gift from God, and just a fun, all-around fun person to be with, even when we're talking about serious subjects. What did you take away from just our conversation about the gift of rejection?
I love what she said about the saying that we always hear, that rejection is God's protection. But then she said, but also it is a redirection. And she gave illustrations of that. And it's like a whole mindset shift. It's a whole way of looking at things that may not go as you had planned, but it's for your protection and also redirection. So I love that. Like Nona is like super smart. Like you said, it's funny, really, really good. The book is, I love the title of it because you would normally pick up something like The Gift of Rejection, but that book is a blessing. It really is, because so many times we can't avoid rejection, but it's about how you look at it. And I think she really does explain really how rejection is a gift.
But I just got this revelation in this moment. Half the trauma that I've experienced with rejection was the rejection. Half of it was me resisting the redirection, trying to,
Mm.
no, I don't want to let go. I don't want to give up. And God's like, if you just let go, it'll be a
This
lot easier on you if you trust me. So listen, with that word, this has been
is
another
true.
edition of Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. You can follow us at beliftedupradio.com. You can hear this and other episodes. You can go to the Mocha podcast plural, network.com, because we're part of that network. You can catch us on Sirius XM 141 HUR Voices on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And you can follow us on the socials at the letter B, Lifted Up Radio on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and other social platforms. Listen, I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. here with the wonderful Pam Perry. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.